Aksai Chin is a frozen Himalayan desert, high and barren. India claims it, China controls it since the brutal 1962 war. Colonial map mistakes and China's highway sparked the fight. This video breaks down the real story behind Aksai Chin. Colonial roots of the dispute. The Aksai Chin mess started long before India or China as we know them existed. Back when the British were running the show in India during the 19th century. The Himalayan region was a tough nut to crack, remote, rugged, and barely populated. The British, paranoid about Russian expansion in Central Asia during the Great Game, tried to draw borders to protect their Indian empire. That's where things got sloppy. When India gained independence in 1947, it inherited the British mess, including the Johnson Line, which put Aksai Chin in Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, the new People's Republic of China, established in 1949, started flexing its muscles, claiming Aksai Chin as part of its historical territory based on old trade routes and Qing records. With no clear border and both sides reading different maps, the stage was set for a showdown. The 1950s. Fast forward to the 1950s, and things started getting real. China, fresh off annexing Tibet in 1950, needed a way to link its restive western regions. Enter National Highway 219, a road they built right through Aksai Chin to connect Xinjiang to Tibet. This wasn't just a road, it was China saying, "This is ours." India, meanwhile, was clueless about the construction for years, because Aksai Chin was so damn remote. They only found out in 1957 when aerial surveys spotted the highway. Cue the diplomatic outrage. India fired off protests, saying the road was on their turf, pointing to the Johnson Line. China shrugged, claiming Aksai Chin was theirs, leaning on a border closer to the Macartney-MacDonald Line. Talks between Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai went nowhere. Both sides were digging in, and the lack of a proper border agreement was like gasoline waiting for a spark. The 1962 Sino-Indian War. That spark came in 1962, when the Sino-Indian War erupted. The fight wasn't just about Aksai Chin. It also involved the eastern border along the McMahon Line. But the Western Desert was a key battleground. India's forward policy of setting up outposts in disputed areas pissed off China, which was better prepared and knew the terrain like the back of its hand. In October 1962, China launched a full-on offensive. In Aksai Chin, their forces steamrolled Indian outposts, which were scattered, undersupplied, and freezing their asses off in the high-altitude cold. The desert's brutal conditions, sub-zero temps, thin air, and rocky terrain, made it a nightmare for India's troops, who were caught off guard. By November, China had taken control of Aksai Chin, securing the highway and pushing Indian forces back. On November 21, 1962, China called a unilateral ceasefire. They pulled back from some eastern areas but kept a tight grip on Aksai Chin. The war was a gut punch for India. Thousands dead, a humiliated military, and a national ego in tatters. For China, it was a flex, locking in their control over the desert. The line of actual control, LAC, became the de facto border, but it's more like a vague suggestion than a clear line, with both sides patrolling up to their own claims. Aftermath of 1962. The 1962 war left Aksai Chin firmly in China's hands, and it stayed that way ever since. India never gave up its claim, insisting the region is part of Ladakh, but the ground reality was clear. China was calling the shots. The LAC, established post-war, became the uneasy dividing line, but its exact path was never agreed upon, leading to constant friction. India licked its wounds, ramping up its border defenses, while China solidified its hold with infrastructure like roads and outposts. The war also soured India-China relations for decades. India's defeat was a wake-up call, pushing it to modernize its military and rethink its border strategy. For China, Aksai Chin became a non-negotiable piece of its western frontier, tied to its control over Tibet. The dispute simmered, with occasional flare-ups, but nothing matched the scale of 1962. Until recent years. Recent incidents. The Aksai Chin dispute has seen a string of incidents in recent years, keeping the region in the headlines. The most dramatic was the 2020 Galwan Valley clash just east of Aksai Chin. On June 15, 2020, Indian and Chinese troops got into a brutal hand-to-hand fight over a disputed stretch of the LAC. No guns were used due to border agreements, but soldiers went at it with stones, clubs, and fists. India lost 20 soldiers. China admitted to deaths, but didn't say how many. It was the deadliest clash since 1975 and sent shockwaves through both countries. The Galwan incident wasn't directly in Aksai Chin, but was tied to the broader LAC dispute, with tensions spilling over into the western sector. Both sides accused each other of crossing the LAC and building up forces. Satellite images showed China setting up new posts and India reinforcing its positions. Talks followed, but trust was shot. In 2022, another skirmish broke out near the LAC in the Yangtze area, though not in Aksai Chin itself. Indian and Chinese troops clashed, with minor injuries reported. It was a reminder that the border was still a tinderbox. India responded by boosting its troop presence in Ladakh, including near Aksai Chin, and speeding up road construction to match China's infrastructure edge. By 2023, tensions flared again in the Depsang Plains, a key area in Aksai Chin where both sides have overlapping claims. Indian patrols reported being blocked by Chinese forces, echoing pre-2020 standoffs. China, meanwhile, accused India of encroaching on its territory. These incidents kept the LAC hot, with both sides maintaining heavy deployments, tens of thousands of troops, tanks, and artillery. In 2024, a lesser-known incident occurred near Pangong-tso, close to Aksai Chin's southern edge. Indian and Chinese troops faced off over a grazing dispute involving local herders, escalating into a brief scuffle. No casualties were reported, but it showed how even small sparks could ignite. Diplomatic talks diffused it, but the LAC remained tense. Aksai Chin's history is a saga of bad maps, big egos, and bloody battles. The LAC, more a line of constant friction than control, keeps Aksai Chin in a state of uneasy stalemate. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.